Welcome. I'm David Birnbaum. It's Wednesday, August 3rd, 2016. And we're here to have a conversation about my 3-volume work, Summa Metaphysica series, which proposes potentialism theory. I'm here with Mark Davis from Atlanta, who has written extensively about the series. We're trying to get our arms around the theory, and we're going to do it via conversation. We're going to peg off of the following theme: Charles Darwin's Beethoven and David Birnbaum's Beethoven. Meaning, how does Darwinian theory get to the great composer Beethoven, and how does my theory get to the great composer Beethoven from the Big Bang? Okay, how do we get from the Big Bang to Beethoven, approximately 1800, according to each of the theories? I'm going to throw the question open first to Mark Davis to open the discussion.
Thank you. When I first came across potentialism, what I found different about it is it was all-inclusive. There are a lot of questions left to be answered by randomness theory, which is the popular one currently. But it lacked a certain direction. It just seemed
Randomness theory.
Yeah, right. Obviously the name is random. What they proposed was just everything happened by accident and chaos and the world's falling apart, which makes no sense because if you look at the history of the universe, it's been about creation. Things have gotten more complex, more complicated. You started with particles and then molecules and then stars and now people. And mere chance just makes no sense. And likewise, if you look at our Darwinian theory, yes, it has a place. It explains some of the factors, survival of the fittest, how humanity got to be the way it is, but it doesn't cover everything. There's missing gaps there. There's no advantage evolutionarily to, say, being able to paint or making music.
Okay, let me give you my take just to this point. When the first volume of Summa Metaphysica, which was called God and Evil, which was published by Katav Publishing, came on the scene in 1988, there was one prevalent theory about the universe, and that theory is randomness theory. And they are allied with the atheist group. So it's randomness / atheist theory. And they're sort of centered in England. And according to this theory, everything's random, chaotic. And just by accident or chance, our universe was created. And just by accident and chance, it evolved over the past 14 billion years in a very complex fashion, a sophisticated fashion, and ends up again with Mr. Beethoven in 1800. And now this group effectively controls key chokeholds in academic life because they control the major British journals. And since they control the major British journals, they control the debate to a great extent. And they basically stymie and cut off debate. They basically stymie discussion and typically will defame any person proffering an alternative theory. So for instance, there was a group called Intelligent Design, which challenged randomness theory, and they were defamed almost into non-existence. Randomness theory can be accused of being total nonsense. It can be accused as the successor to the theory which says you can get gold out of lead. Except the theory that can get gold out of lead is probably more sophisticated theory, however wrong and however nonsensical, than randomness theory, which is total nonsense, total and complete nonsense. I'm not the only person who says this, but just for the context, that's what I think of it. It doesn't rise to the level of being even neo-scientific. Having said that, potentialism theory says there is a direction to the universe. And potentialism theory may be right or may be wrong. But it's certainly a legitimate, highly sophisticated theory, which is plausible. Okay, now continue.
Okay.
Please.
Yeah, just to expand on the theory sum is it starts out very simply with the central formula, which is Q for P leads to C plus leads to E plus. So very simple, laid out, and everything in the universe can be structured that way. There's no other theories necessary. There's no other formulas really necessary. Anything else you get from potentialism is derived off that.
Okay, so typically most laymen, and even scientists get a little nervous about any formulas. So we're going to back off formulas. Basically, for a moment, the theory says that potential drives the universe forward, and it seeks what we call E plus, what I call E plus extraordinariation. It's my own word. It seeks the extraordinary. That is its inexorable trajectory. So we go from almost nothingness through the Big Bang, through creation of the cosmic order, creation of the universe, creation of stars, planets, life, humans, and in the 1800, we intersect with Mr. Beethoven. It's all a trajectory towards extraordinariation. That's the guiding concept. Now, exactly how this works, that has to be worked out over the next 2,000 years. But it provides a working hypothesis to be discussed and analyzed. So it says, everything is not nonsense. Life, love, glory, poetry, music are not just random occurrences. They're an endeavor by the cosmic order to reach extraordinariation. And all these advances encompass the march towards extraordinariation. In the middle of the equation, what Marx said was C plus, which is complexification. So when we go from a single cell to multicellular, we're effecting C plus, what I'm calling C plus, complexification. When we go from a slug to a tiger in evolution, we're going through several levels of C plus on the march towards E plus, extraordinariation. So simply put, we start with quest for potential, which we're calling Q4P. We're going through infinite C plus complexification, all on the march towards E plus, extraordinariation. Is E plus attainable? E plus is a goal, never to actually be achieved. It's an ongoing cosmic march. So the cosmic has a goal, a target. Cosmos itself does not know exactly what E plus is. But it knows instinctively that higher levels of consciousness, higher levels of emotion, higher levels of beauty, higher levels of harmony, maybe even higher levels of mercy, maybe even higher levels of justice, maybe higher levels of glory, grandeur, beauty. All these are on the basic build-out towards more and more extraordinariation. So what looks like a obscure formula turns out to be not that obscure. The cosmos is continuously building out inexorably towards a goal which is not quite sure of E plus. Along the way, it creates dinosaurs through manipulation of DNA. That was wiped out, it reboots and ends up with humans as a dominant force on the planet. So guys, we have to be good or we're replaceable. The dinosaurs are replaceable and we're replaceable. Because the cosmic order has its own plans for the universe. And if we can't advance relatively peacefully and we destroy ourselves, the cosmic order will find another route towards E plus. Okay, take it from there.
Yeah, a little more about the complexification, actually.
So C plus, right?
Yeah, C plus, in the middle of the equation. These are events that we've seen over time.
Yeah, please.
On different scales.
Yeah, let's hear about that, right?
So let's start with the Big Bang. And the Big Bang, the initial moments of the universe we know, there were only particles. The atoms didn't exist. There was nothing but loose particles. And then our first complexification event was the formation of hydrogen, of an atom. And after that, we started quickly, well, on a universal scale quickly, we filled out the periodic table. And once that was done, you'd think there's nowhere to go. It's just a world full of atoms. And then we had the first molecules form, yet another complexification event. So the world took a turn in a direction that nobody could have foreseen. Not that there was anybody there at the time, but if they had been, you wouldn't have been able to know where it was going to go next.
Right, so tell our viewers where we go from the periodic table to humans. Alert our viewers how we get from the periodic table to humans as we know it today, just broadly speaking.
Yeah, from there, once the plants were formed.
No. First we have to go through supernovas. Supernovas are creating and baking the elements of the periodic table, exploding and showering the universe with the various elements. And the elements, a lot of them end up on our planet. And eventually the elements are stitched together, I would say by Q4P, into eventually becoming humans as we know it. How does that sound to you?
Yeah, there's some jumps in there, but between like algae and multicellular plant life.
Please fill it in,
And eventually, after plant life, well, you'd think that's as complex as it can possibly get, and suddenly we have actual life forms, life that's self-aware and can think. And I would argue that humanity is that next step of complexification, because we can reason and fashion advanced tools. But one of the things, and the reason I know we've talked about before, is that we call it, complexification instead of complexity, is to state there is a difference between the two, because complexity itself is purely mechanical. And from a Darwinian perspective, that would be a purely mechanical survival of the fittest. Things like compassion, art, have no place in a Darwinian system. If we were running purely on that, we wouldn't go to concerts. It wouldn't happen. It would just be this fluke that somebody could make some sound and nobody would be interested in it.
Right, it's more than that. If we just want survival of the fittest, we might just have a very sturdy slug, which is able to survive, nuclear winter. There'll be survival of the fittest. And we would be averse to get anything more complex. We would not want beautiful birds. We would not want Siberian tigers. We would want just a simple utilitarian survival entity, if Darwinian theory alone is sufficient. Now, survival is necessary. Survival is a component of Q4P, of quest for potential. To reach our potential, we have to survive. To thrive in life, we have to be able to pay the rent, right? But paying the rent is necessary, but not sufficient. Survival is necessary, but not sufficient. So it's not that Darwin was wrong, that survival of the fittest is a component, but it's far from the major component. It's a necessary, but wholly insufficient component. In the equation, we can say it's 10% of the equation. Whether it's 5% or 25%. Now, in my mind, it's about 10% of the equation. It's necessary, but it's far from sufficient. It's a starting point.